ways in which liquid hydrogen will create substances, the ways by which we use them.
Today, we're joined by Jason Ingber, the attorney representing plaintiffs in a class action lawsuit against Toyota. The case alleges that Toyota misled consumers about availability and convenience of hydrogen refueling stations for the Mirai model. As hydrogen infrastructure remains limited, Mirai owners face numerous challenges, from refueling difficulties to unexpected costs. We will delve into the details of these allegations, explore the broader implications for the hydrogen vehicle industry, and discuss what this means for consumers and the future of clean energy. Jason, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Arnes. I appreciate it.
Can you give us a short introduction?
My name is Jason. I'm an attorney in Los Angeles, California. I used to represent auto manufacturers like Volkswagen and Hyundai in different capacities, lemon law, credit issues. So I understand what it takes to represent and understand an auto manufacturer. Toyota is acting so nefarious from my perspective that it's really hard to understand the business incentives, because incentives drives everything. And it's hard to understand where they're coming from or what they're doing and why they're doing it. I have an expert in this case that will testify with firsthand knowledge. He's a retired lawyer. So I'm doing these cases, filing the arbitrations, the class actions, starting to get some traction. Suddenly I get a call. And this guy has the most sincere Southern drawl I've ever heard in my life. Just he sounds like someone's uncle. You want him to be part of your family. Just really nice guy. And he starts telling me that his first job prior to becoming an attorney many years ago, back in like 2014, was to operate the first hydrogen fuel pump in California, which was funded half by taxpayer dollars, millions and millions of dollars to create these hydrogen fuel pumps is what it costs. And it was for Cal State. I don't want to reveal his name on this interview, but he will be part of the litigation and he will be testifying as an expert. And he testifies firsthand how for years, Toyota, in meetings with legislatures of California behind closed doors, was blocking his ability to sell hydrogen to Mirai owners. So Mirai owners would sometimes come by and he would just give them fuel for free every once in a while because he felt bad that they couldn't get their hydrogen. But definitely the Toyota cards for fueling didn't work at that station. And Toyota itself used their influence and basically complete monopolistic control over the hydrogen retail market to block him from being able to sell hydrogen to Mirai owners because they didn't have enough control over small things like the signage and the style of how they were setting up the store within the pump or stuff like that. And it's crazy. The real reason he thinks is because the only hydrogen sellers that Toyota allowed and allows people to fuel with and have grown are the companies that are Japanese based that owe either the country Japan or Toyota money. So they wanted to have complete control over the hydrogen fueling process.
Wow. Let's elaborate on the initial complaints that led to this filling.
So the first woman that called me was about a year ago now, I think more than a year ago. She called me up and I didn't even want to take her case because I hadn't heard about hydrogen, to be honest. I live in Los Angeles, but just so rare. I had no familiarity with it. And so she's telling me this story about how Toyota is selling her this hydrogen car that they're towing her all these many days. She lives in a rural area in Northern California where there's like one fuel pump, and they knew this because they've been giving me rentals and towing my car, and I can't get the car working, and then I have to pay for rentals out of my own pocket and hope that they cover, but sometimes the receipts, it's like really nitty-gritty stuff, and she's complaining. And then the kicker was she's telling me that the heat seater of her driver's seat won't turn off, right? It's on the highest setting at all times. And she's like, it's cooking my ass. You know, she's yelling at me. She's yelling at me, it's cooking my ass. And I'm going like, what, lady, you sound nuts. Like, you sound crazy, right? I just keep hanging up the phone on her. Right? She keeps calling me. She keeps complaining. She keeps telling me I have a case. I'm telling you I have a case. I'm thinking Toyota is like the most respected car company. There was no way that any of this is true. But then her son calls me Timothy Johnson, great guy. He relays all this too. He was a door dasher. He bought this car. They sold him on the incentives, and he's just like can't get the car to work properly for like 30, 40 days at a time. So then I took the case. And then once I took the case, I started doing my research online. I found more people, and the more people found me, and it's organically grown. We have like over 200 people now, and I'm about to file a huge class action with the antitrust component that I was telling you about, the monopolistic power.
Yeah.
That's really the central fulcrum of the case from my perspective. And I'm lucky because one of the people, no one knows this yet, but one of the people that I have as a client is an active military member, and you cannot compel active military members to arbitration. So we're going to escape arbitration on this one client, and I think that that's really going to hurt Toyota and bring them to the negotiating table faster, because their entire response and demeanor and behavior has just been, let's delay this thing as long as possible so we can keep selling the car.
So when we are talking about the sales, there is around 14,000 sold in the US only by the start of 24. So can you discuss the legal grounds of this lawsuit?
Sure. 14,000 sold in the US is accurate, but they typically sold 99.9% of the cars in California, because California is the only state that has hydrogen. Although one or two other people did buy it from out of state, and they really can't use the car at all, which is funny. Okay. But let me answer your question. So the legal grounds for the lawsuit are threefold. Number one, the infrastructure for this car is just not workable. In the summertime, hydrogen pumps sometimes just don't work at all for days on end. When you get to the fueling station, consumers were told that the refueling process is 5 minutes. And yeah, that's true if the hydrogen pump is working 100% perfectly. But sometimes it locks onto a car. The hydrogen fuel pump actually locks into the car. You have to wait for a technician for an hour to come. And then if you're waiting an hour for a technician to unfreeze from your car, there's a whole line of people that have suddenly can't get their hydrogen because that one pump is down and there's other pumps that are not working. And this happens all the time, where the app tells someone, yeah, the fuel is working at this station. They get there and the fuel pump is down and the app wasn't giving them accurate information. So Toyota is trying to say, oh, well, that just has to do with the infrastructure. The car works perfectly, so you can't sue us for that. But you can't make a flying car and sell it to people and say, well, we forgot about gravity. We didn't solve gravity yet. Here's the flying car. It works, but only on the moon. It's not going to work really here. Okay, well, it's after a house, it's the most expensive thing you're going to buy in your life, a car. And the reason that the regulations behind selling cars are so strict, especially in California, is because it's such an expensive item. So I'm suing them on a lemon law basis. I'm saying that basically it's a frustration of purpose. It impairs the safety, use, and enjoyment of the vehicle. They don't have the parts for the car here. So the woman who's getting her butt cooked by the seat, they can't even fix it. They don't have new coils to fix it here. All the parts are in Japan. So I think that the car is a lemon. The car, even though it technically functions when everything is working perfectly, but everything isn't working perfectly. So the car is a lemon. So that's basis number one. Basis number two, which dovetails off of that, is the false advertising element. So they said, okay, the car gets 400 miles of range. That's just not true. Hundreds of people spoken to, no one's getting more than 270. Toyota is going to say, oh, the EPA is the one that set that. The EPA set it's on us. Well, the tank never fills up fully. People can't get a full tank of gas. So the RAV4, one of the more premium, trusted cars of Toyota, the tank was on a tilt. So it never filled up totally, the gas tank. And that resulted in a $45 million class action lawsuit just because of the tank tilting. So you couldn't get 14 gallons. You could only get like 12.9 or something even more than that. It was a pretty famous lawsuit. I mean, this is even worse. You cannot fill this car up. It doesn't hold a full tank of hydrogen. Most of the pumps never even offer that. But even if it does, the car doesn't fill up. So there's false advertising. That's what's kind of awesome about this case. It's so unique. And then also the monopolistic control, their nefarious use of controlling the market, of blocking hydrogen sellers, from being able to sell. It depreciates the value of the car. People buy this car. The MSRP of the car is $70,000. The second they put it off the lot, the car is worth $0.
Oh, yeah.
Residual value going down by at least 90% each time. There's some element of fraud there. They know that this is what they're doing. They're depreciating the value of the car by making new ones so cheap with their rebates and tax incentives that they lobbied the government for on lies. They said, oh, this car is green. Hydrogen is green. No, it's not. The hydrogen is gray hydrogen. It's not healthy for the environment. The whole thing is just one big lie, one big flop. And I don't understand what Toyota is doing. They knew it would flop. It flopped in Germany before. It flopped in Japan before. And they're still selling this car to this day. I'm sure even when you publish this, they will still be selling the car. I have to bring them to their knees to stop.
Except for the things that you mentioned, there were other things that you have listed on your website. And these include affected acceleration, produces unusual noises. There are general lack of power, malfunctioning dashboard displays, issues with the starting the car, electronic component failures. And as you said, the car lost a value at the moment of buying for at least 80%. Like if you want to sell it in whatever time, like in a year, it will be valued at 20%. And the price of hydrogen in 22 was $13. Today it's 36. All of these probably matter.
100%. The acceleration of the car, to be fair and honest to Toyota and whatever the consumers out there, maybe that's about less than 10% of the people I've spoken to. But from my perspective, the fact that it's happening at all, I know a guy off the top of my head. I just talked to him in his driveway. He was like just starting to pull in, and then suddenly, like the car just starts flying. I mean, that's worth mentioning, because if it's happening to just 5, 6, 7 people out of 150, that's still unacceptable.
And there's this famous Toyota fuel card. Can you explain this concept? I think it's very important.
Yeah. So this was part of how they had control over where you could fuel. Toyota gave as an incentive to anyone who bought this car new a fuel card for $15,000 worth of hydrogen.
So it's not on all locations.
Right. They're not going to reimburse you. It's like a debit card. And they're not going to pay for the hydrogen, let's say, at this unapproved hydrogen station. I mean, it's a rare case because how many stations are there, but they're not gonna pay for the unapproved hydrogen. And the fuel card is also what depreciates the value of the car, because if I try and resell my car and hydrogen, it costs me $300 or close to it to fill up this car to get a insignificant amount of fuel sometimes, right? So I'm paying crazy money and I'm not even able to fill up the tank totally. I'm not going to buy a used car from someone if there's no chance of me buying a used car, because I can go to Toyota, get a brand new one with a $15,000 fuel card. Plus they're giving me a rebate from the government. I get a check from the government. I get rebates from Toyota itself. So the MSRP is so far down. So your $70,000 car from Toyota, you can get it for less than 30, brand new. Where is what spread? Where is the used car going to even sell at? Max 15 grand, even hypothetically, if you could find someone that would be willing to buy it. So the fuel card is kind of odd. And sometimes they didn't reimburse people quickly enough, or people have to use their own credit card and submit receipts. And they're starting to get feisty about that, especially as the costs of hydrogen rise.
Are there any other financial burdens on the owners?
Of course, sure. I have a lawyer as a client who, thankfully, he has another car, but he was relying on this car and for at some point in his career, and he missed court hearings. People missing things of their job because they ran out of fuel, or fuel pump took too long. But you asked specifically financial burdens, like some people are paying very high monthly payments on the car, and it's just not working properly. And they're under pressure, a few people have to get new cars, especially in the more rural parts of California. In Los Angeles, it's just a headache that's actionable legally, aside from the monopolistic power and the false advertising. But let's just talk practically driving the car. In a place like Los Angeles, California, I mean, hydrogen stations keep closing here too. But it's still possible, right? You have to live different. You have to plan ahead. Okay, this hydrogen station, I can go at 7 a.m. and it won't be full. And then I can get 3/4 of my tank full, and I'll be good for 2 weeks. Like, okay, you can live like that. It's a way.
What a life!
What a life! It's a way you can live, and people didn't know that going into the car, but it's doable. But in like once you start getting, and Orange County is similar, but once you start going in between LA to Sacramento, which is a big stretch, I mean, you're toast, man. You're cooked, because you'll have one pump in your county. That thing's down. Now you got to drive 2 counties. You got to drive. I have people that have driven 80 miles to get fuel. So even if the thing has fuel, you're wasting like 40 miles there, 40 miles back. You're wasting such a significant amount of time, effort, and fuel to get the fuel. And so people just had to get another car. It wasn't viable. So they're buying a used car. Now they're paying for a car they don't use. People are struggling nowadays. People are on the struggle bus. Yeah. That's a huge financial burden. Someone has to make a $500 a month car payment for a car they're not using. And then they're worried sick. Are they going to hurt my credit? What, can I stop making payments? It's a tough position to be in.
Yeah, definitely.
And some people have ran out of their fuel cards too. Like the people that have actually been able to get fuel and use the cars, even in mostly Los Angeles, right? They ran out of the fuel. So now they're having to pay out of pocket, some of them, like hundreds of dollars to fuel up a car that you get 200 miles to the gallon, to the tank. So.
Wow. So except for these that you mentioned, what other claims support that Toyota is unsafe, unreliable, and unusable? Is there anything else?
Yeah, I mean, there's you would imagine after having, 200 people that I'm speaking to, some things are different than others. Like for some people, and this was a lot, this was like, I don't know. I don't want to give percentage because I don't want to misspeak, but it was a significant percentage of people that are getting this like very scary. It's not like a check engine light. It's like, this car is unsafe to drive until you go to a dealer. And then they go to the dealer and the dealers just sort of clear the fault code. And they're like, good to go, I don't know. I wouldn't want to drive a hydrogen car that's saying that to me. Like, this car is unsafe to drive. That's a crazy warning light to get. So, and they're not really explaining what it is. And they don't have the parts to fix these cars. Each person has different issues. A lot of them have different issues. That's why it's not terrible that we're in arbitration, because each person's case is different, aside from the larger issues. But yeah, the car itself, theoretically, if there were as many hydrogen stations as there were gas stations, maybe the car could somewhat be salvageable, but we're not there. So then everything else gets magnified as well.
Yeah. How long has Toyota been aware of these limitations and issues with hydrogen refueling stations and general problems? Did they take any steps to address these problems?
No. They've been on notice of this before they got this to California. They've experimented with this in different countries. They experimented it in their own country. Japan is actually similarly sized to California. In a lot of respect, there's mountainous regions. I mean, it was a good testing area, and they knew it was failing there. For example, Hyundai, they stopped selling the car in South Korea, in their own home country. These companies knew that this thing was going to fail. I think that they are big players in the oil and gas industry, and they're just trying anything to delay people adopting electric vehicles. And so they're willing to try even, throw a few $1 billion at this research and development project on the 10% chance that it works. Hallelujah. But
what are the broader?
They also know now, right? They know now. I filed this lawsuit. I filed my first lawsuit over about a year ago. I don't know the exact date now. I have to check. They're still selling the car, right? And I've since hit them with over 100 arbitrations. Literally, they're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars we're in the very early stages. In the arbitration agreement, they're covering all the fees. They know what's going on, and they know now they're still going to sell the car. They're going to try and get rid of the ones that they want to make.
So what are the broader implications in this case? Can we talk about the state of California has any responsibility of this?
They definitely do, but I don't think it would be beneficial for my clients if I start naming the state. The state is a very powerful actor, and it would definitely delay things even more. The state would probably point their hands at Toyota and say, "Oh, we got duped." They gave them over $100 million. They just handed Toyota over $100 million, and they were giving away money to people that bought these hydrogen cars on like a green initiative, and it's not green. They're using more fossil fuels to create the hydrogen than you would for any other energy source. There's Elon Musk, and you can look at these old interviews of him in like 2013, where he's like, "Oh, hydrogen is silly." You know what I'm talking about. He's like, "Hydrogen is silly." I don't know if that guy's able to figure that out in 2013. The state of California should have known that something was up too, but I don't know how. I can't really fault California too much.
But do you expect any reaction from them, like in terms of a law, policy changes, regulations, whatever?
That's not realistic. That's not realistic. I think it will make some waves. Someone I'm speaking with is a senator, a California state senator. I know that I'm going to make some waves, some inroads, but you know how government is. I mean, it's hopefully. I don't want to be pessimistic. So hopefully this does make a change. Hopefully it tightens regulations in general on people that are trying to get money out of the state, and you have to be more honest with what you're doing with it. And we should just stop investing in this hydrogen stuff until either it makes a huge turn and it is actually green and viable, or something else happens. But for right now, this is just an absolute disaster that even the private sector is pulling out of, like Shell completely pulled out of. So
you're well informed. So how this lawsuit aim to protect the future consumers?
We're going to stop Toyota from selling the car because people still are, my lawsuit is less out there than Toyota's billboards and marketing and dealerships are. So people are still buying the car because they don't know. You go and you try and get a Corolla or whatever, one of their base models, and then these sales guys are like, no, I got this new thing. It's really cool. It's a good environment. It's good for you. It's good for us. It's good for everyone. Kumbaya. And people get into these cars. I mean, people are calling me now because like 2 weeks after they buy the car, they're like, "Oh, this is a disaster." The first time they have to fill up, and then they're researching they try and trade it into Toyota, and Toyota tells them, "Yeah, we'll take it back. You can trade it in for a Corolla. We'll give you $5,000 for it." So then they're like, "Oh, we got to sue these people." They look up an attorney. They talk to me. So they're still selling the cars. They're still tricking people. I would hope that they stop selling this car. That would be the best thing that could happen.
Who qualifies to be part of this class action, and what is the potential scope of the affected class members?
Great question. So class members, I think that's how I got lucky as a lawyer. The fact that this isn't flooded with other lawyers that are going to muscle me out. I do work with other lawyers. I have a good outfit. Like I said, I used to work for car manufacturers. So I think I'm uniquely positioned to help people. But there's definitely other great lawyers in California, and very few of them are taking this case on. Because
is there a reason for that?
Yeah, it's very uncertain. No one's ever litigated hydrogen retail before. Right, like a classic lemon law case.
All right.
The classic lemon law lawyers, they're not going to be interested in this kind of case because it's unknown, and Toyota's going to fight like hell. Another reason why other people aren't going to try this case is because you're going to get compelled to arbitration. I used to do it all the time when I worked at Hyundai specifically. Anytime we wanted to, we would just compel arbitration. You can compel arbitration to, let's say, a spouse that never even signed the agreement. So sometimes lawyers try and get, whenever you get a credit card, okay, a credit card, a car, most major
Yeah.
purchases from companies, you sign this like click wrap, I agree to all your service terms and conditions. You don't read it. In there, it says you're waiving your rights to class action. Okay. So smart lawyers tried to get around that with me, and they're like, oh, my wife is suing for all the problems of this car, not me. And she never signed this agreement. No, I was still able to compel them to arbitration. The arbitration provisions are written so long and so in depth and so broad that you can compel anyone to arbitration. So any lawyer that has someone come to them and approach them with this case, they'd have to do it on a single basis, and they know they're going to get tossed into arbitration, which is private and won't allow them to represent a class, which is like a lazy way of, I represent one person, but I'm representing everyone that has this issue. No, you can't do that. You represent each person individually. Most lawyers don't want to deal with that. I found a way out of the arbitration agreement, God willing that works, and just in general. But that's why I think most lawyers aren't taking it on. But I am. I'm willing to, and I'm very excited about this case. I think that Toyota's acting nuts, and we gotta nail them to the wall for it.
What specific outcomes are you seeking from the court in terms of damages, restitution, or other remedies?
It's hard to know. Every client is asking me that, obviously. But what I tell them is I'm trying to fight for your money. I'm trying to get you at least your car payments back. Let's say like the Lemon Law allows for up to 3 times the amount of damages. So 3 times the amount of your car payments as a punishment if it's found to be willful or something really harsh. So there's different, and false advertising also has treble damages, extra damages that you can get. And both of those have attorney's fees. Same thing with antitrust, triple damages plus attorney's fees. So I'm hoping for a home run here, but at the very least, I'm hoping to get people their money back, me paid. And I think that's reasonable here.
Yeah. So how do you see the future of hydrogen vehicles evolving in light of this lawsuit?
I don't think that hydrogen's going away anytime soon. I think that it's just going to shift to commercial. In the first iteration of my lawsuit, I found, because one of my clients sent me an article, it was like some obscure auto blog that picked up a C-level executive from Toyota talking at a trade show in Japan, admitting basically, the Mirai is kind of a failure, but we can pivot to hydrogen vehicles being commercially viable. So like big trucks, because I think you eliminated a lot of the issues. If you're filling up one big tank at set times, like it just logistically, they end up with less problems. So I think that they're going to just try and clean up the hydrogen, make it greener, and move it just to commercial vehicles. I don't think it makes sense on the retail level at all.
Yeah.
At least not for another 10, 12 years based on what I'm reading.
Finally, how important is public awareness in this case, and what message do you hope to convey to current and potential hydrogen vehicle owners?
Well, public awareness always helps, that's it's so underrated. I think that the people have so much more power. I'd love to see that in general. I'd love to see people have a blackout day where no one uses social media, how much control we would have over those big tech companies if we would just all band together. And similarly with this, Toyota is just guinea pigging people in California, and people should know about it. People should know that they shouldn't be guinea pigs for corporate giants. This company is basically the Japanese government. It's an arm of the Japanese government. They do $30 billion a year in revenue. The CEO of Toyota is on the Ministry of Japan, like has a very prominent seat in the government. I mean, and they're guinea pigging Californians. If they sold this car in Texas or Oklahoma, there is no lemon law in Texas. Go screw yourself, partner. I don't know. I can't do a Texas accent, but like you lose half of the protections, right? They chose to sell this car in California, not me. I didn't choose to sell this car. They chose to lobby the government for millions of dollars of our money, taxpayer money. And what did they do? They thwarted other hydrogen sellers. They sold this crappy car that just makes no sense. And when you hear about it at first, it's kind of like, even me as a lawyer, when I heard about the McDonald's case where the woman burnt herself because the coffee was too hot and she got $1 million, and you're just like, oh, come on. Like, come on, America. Is this what we're holding? But then you read the case. That case specifically is such a great example because the woman was burned so severely. And McDonald's, that location specifically, was overheating their coffee. They had gotten dozens and dozens of complaints that people had been burned a little here, a little there. She got really burned. But they were specifically overheating the coffee to like 170, some crazy high number above what they're supposed to, because it was cheaper. You know, it was easier, faster. You could service more coffees, whatever it was, some business decision that they did this. With the lawyers found out, you know, warnings, numerous warnings from customers, like, please stop, you're killing us with this coffee. And then she had to get like skin graft surgery. It's disgusting. So when people hear about this case initially, they think, oh, hydrogen, you know, people must have known and they were looking for some kind of fight to pick with Toyota. Really not. Right? Like, really not. These people did not know anything. The car looks like a luxury sedan. It doesn't have even like a Prius look to it. It looks like it's like a new Lexus. You know, and it's Toyota. You don't think that Toyota is going to sell you something that's such a world of a headache. And if you're in the more northern regions of California and they show you on the app, look, there's, and they zoom in, look at how many hydrogen stations, and then, you know, half of them are down or never working, and you're just messed over. No, that's a real problem that Toyota is just concocting and putting out there and trapping people into these vehicles. People should know about it, and I'm happy to fight back and try and get their money back.
Jason, thank you for this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the work you're doing in the world, really cutting edge energy news. And thank you. Thank you for servicing the public with all the work that you're doing.
Good luck.
Thank you.